Hello everyone, my name is Jeanette Camping and on behalf of Henry Stewart Events, I'd like to welcome you to our three-part webinar series, Workflow Automation, How to Optimize for Efficient Creative Operations, sponsored by Global Edit. We're delighted to have a global audience of over 500 creative ops professionals registered for the series. There will be time at the end of the session dedicated to Q&A, so please post your questions on your GoToWebinar panel. We'll be following up with everyone after the presentation with a recording of the webinar. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers for today, Rana Dutt and Brian Gavin. Thank you both for joining us, and over to you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Jeanette, and thank you to Henry Stewart for welcoming Global Edit and AWS, Amazon Web Services, together here today to spend the next 45 minutes really unpacking creative workflow automation and the scale that technology has brought to us as creatives, producing tons of content in an ever-changing world. So I'm very happy to introduce myself. I'm Brian Gavin. I'm the president of Global Edit. We're the leading creative workflow management solution. And also Rana, to go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Brian and Jeanette. My name is Rana Dutt, and I'm a senior solutions architect at AWS. So I help companies build scalable and cost-effective solutions on the AWS cloud. It's good to be with you.
Thanks so much, Rana, and a big thank you to you for all the time you spent with me, not only as a partner preparing for this webinar, but Amazon Web Services being the backbone to the really fast growth that we've seen here at Global Edit. I think we're in for an exciting conversation today. Our goal for everyone on the line today is that you walk away with some key takeaways on how to optimize for a more efficient creative workflow. And we're going to be focused on helping you understand how to harness the power of creative workflow management solutions that are natively now available within the cloud and available to enterprises at a really low barrier to entry. And with that, we're going to dive into a little bit of what the history of workflow automation has been and get started. So for anyone who may want to get in touch with Rana or I after this, our QR codes here are available as well as our email. So we're going to dive right into automating image and video workflows. And Rana, before I do, I'm just curious, you've been in the industry a long time. Creative workflow automation has probably evolved a lot in your eyes, and tell us a little bit about how you've seen that transpire.
Oh, absolutely. So before I came to work at AWS about 4 years ago, I worked in healthcare. And then before that, I worked in advertising. So this was about 10 years ago. I have seen where, for example, we were tasked to deploy a website to coincide with the Super Bowl that year. And we had a pretty talented team, but we struggled to get all the assets together just in time to launch on that Super Bowl day. So because of the fact that we didn't have good search tools for cataloging our images, and because the client kept changing their mind, so we kept having to look in different myriad places manually for all these images. So the end result was that we got the website launched in time for the Super Bowl, but all our team were so tired that we slept right through it and we missed it completely. So at that point, I said, there's got to be a better way, and this is why I'm excited about how the cloud has really revolutionized how we label content and classify content, and I'm excited to address that today.
It's a great topic to talk about why we're thinking about automating workflows now. And for Global Edit and the focus that we've had as a software focused on creative workflow management, it's a lot about the experience to the creative, but it's also about the impact to the end user. And so, Rana, as you've understood and worked across industries, how has the justification of automating workflows been presented to you as a leader within the organization or as architect of folks moving into the cloud and working to build on top of Amazon Web Services?
Absolutely. So we have seen 4 primary benefits and drivers for companies to move to the cloud to automate workflows. First of all, it saves them time. So they may save hours of time during the day, which of course, when you save time, that translates immediately to saving dollars. Secondly, it eliminates human errors. And the other thing is that it allows people to focus on higher value tasks so that they don't need to be stuck doing more menial tasks. And fourthly, of course, all the processes become a lot more consistent, a lot more automated, and that of course increases productivity.
So we're talking a lot about the cloud and automation, and for the folks that are on maybe in the depths of the creative and producing beautiful imagery or beautiful video at the benefit of technology, how has the advancements in technology made it something that I can realize more as a creative and less of I've gone to IT and they've kind of pushed me back on it's a high cost to buy all the infrastructure and the hardware to get going to kind of take that next step in technology. Is there something that Amazon Web Services or the cloud in general has eliminated that now as a creative person who really just cares about, do I produce great content, you've provided as a benefit or as an availability to make this an easier reality?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, about 10 years ago, this was mainly a manual process to classify images and videos, to tag them and then search like that. Towards the earlier part and the middle part of the last decade, we began to see software that would help, tag videos and images and to search that content via the tags, but it was still a manual process. Someone still had to manually tag all that content. What has happened in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years that has truly revolutionized these kinds of tasks for creatives is the advent of machine learning and the cloud, those two things. So basically what's happened is that because the cloud makes available thousands of horizontally scaled compute servers and terabytes and terabytes of storage, all at the click of a button and all at a relatively cheap price. The prices have come down such that the cloud now enables machine learning to be in the hands of companies of every size. Even a small company now can take advantage of machine learning on the cloud. And because it's all on-demand, pay-as-you-go pricing, and because it's so cheap, every company of every size can now take advantage of this technology to do digital asset management, to do automated content classification, content moderation, campaigns, and so on and so forth.
That speaks to the information from our side, and I know we talk about this a lot, Rana, working very closely with Amazon Web Services. 90% of the DAM systems are already running in the cloud or are headed that way as of this year. And certainly, as all of us can probably reflect back on the last year of what has creative content production been like when I had to function totally remotely or in a hybrid capacity, it's so strange. It's like that switch of running in the cloud happened overnight for a lot of us, or now in a lot of our minds, either at the executive level or at the level of producing that content, the accessibility of that content is so important. And you touched on two different verbs that I wanted to come back to, which was it's cheap, but I think a great way of thinking about that is that it's really scalable. And Global Edit, from modernizing our platform in the last several years, the ability, and I think just to kind of break down what does the cloud mean? It means that your business or your software or your company doesn't rely on hardware that lives within your own organization's walls. It means that you're leveraging technology that's accessible through the beautiful art of having really reliable internet connection to access infrastructure, that technology that unpacks the tools that we need as creatives every day. So Rana, from your perspective and how people go about kind of validating, is it the right time for me to look at advancing my technology? Are there key points of how Amazon looks at whether this is a scalable or a realistic opportunity to take advantage of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So storage for most companies is growing exponentially, and what AWS does is it makes terabytes of storage and petabytes of storage available without going through a long procurement cycle. So it's not just the cost savings and the commoditization of storage in this manner, it's also the agility that you get being on a cloud service such as AWS. And then beyond that storage layer, we've also gone vertically to give machine learning and AI capabilities, give that to a mass audience. In other words, you don't have to be a large enterprise to take advantage of image processing, object recognition, and things of that nature. You can afford to do that because of the pay-as-you-go pricing. There are no contracts to sign. There is no large upfront payment. You can basically just get your content in the cloud, and then you can leverage all these services immediately.
And I know we're going to get into some examples of this workflow, but I guess it might mean that instead of just the creative team or the retouching team relying on a specific set of servers within my own office or a specific software, the ability to be really end-to-end connected in my workflow. This asset now can, if you're working with a JPEG or a TIFF or a video in a .mov file, that asset that we're so focused on within our own roles producing now can extrapolate value from one stage of the workflow and carry it on to the next, because the ability to maintain all of that data and the versions of those assets and the variety of that asset that need to be really customized to fit the huge audience that we're serving it to, all of that can essentially be preserved in this model that we're moving to.
Yes, absolutely. So we think of solutions as a pipeline of services that you stitch together to fit your use case. So you're absolutely right. This isn't just for creatives. If you have an accounts payable department, then invoices can be automated. If you have a marketing department, then those campaigns can be automated. Workflow automation is all about eliminating manual steps, right, to eliminate human errors and to improve productivity. And so, as you said, this applies to all kinds of different departments.
So let's unpack the digital asset management before and after, right? I think this is so cool because there really isn't, I don't think we're all in the after yet. Even within our own walls of Global Edit, we're guilty of some of this. So I think it's important for us all to know that the steps of what we're talking about today are something that our goal is to help you realize that you're capable and you have the tools to get there. But the before the cloud, and I think again, it's still a lot of us living here, is files for retouching were transferred via an FTP server. Generating thumbnails was its own specialized application. Tagging and metadata lived in its own universe of one system, probably or potentially entirely disconnected from the images or videos themselves, excuse me. And then searching was really laborious. I talked to so many brands that want that ability to find the needle in the haystack, but until they've gone the way of investing in a platform like Global Edit or have their images managed within infrastructure like Amazon Web Services, these are still really difficult basic tasks to perform, and we can't think about the next level machine learning and image recognition capabilities that we have. But we now have the ability here to see after cloud, it looks very similar, but much more streamlined.
Absolutely. So if you look at the diagram that's labeled after the cloud, you can see how this entire pipeline of generating thumbnails and then classifying content with tagging is entirely automated with no human beings involved. So you start off with ingesting your images via your SFTP server, and then Amazon, basically it goes into an S3 input bucket. As soon as that image or video hits that bucket, that triggers two workflows automatically. The first workflow down at the bottom is going to generate the thumbnails automatically from that image. And then the second workflow is going to trigger machine learning, where that Amazon recognition is the service that will then look at that image. It'll identify all the objects that are in there. It'll identify that whether the picture has inside it cars or trees and things of that nature. And it will then automatically tag that image. And then all those tagged images wind up in another bucket so that you can then search that entire photo library or video library with the tags and with the content classification type.
And the rate in which the efficiency of a creative content producer, you're able to move from capture to distribution is probably amazingly faster with the capabilities. And whether you're investing in technology directly within Amazon Web Services or Global Edit specifically, where we've adopted and leveraged a lot of this technology for the users of our platform, for the creative content producers and for the marketers, these capabilities are kind of at our fingertips now. But this evolution of refining process has always been happening. You talked about, before coming to Amazon Web Services, some of the history of automation you saw, and I think this is a really interesting example outside of what we all probably want to deal with, which at the end of the production is reconciling production costs. But this is another way to kind of look at how has process of many steps collapsed to fewer. So, and I think the benefit to this, Rana, when you and I were diving into this content a little bit, was the team within finance or creative is still thriving and growing within these organizations, but responsibilities themselves have changed.
Absolutely. So before, let's say that you had an accounts payable team that was responsible for processing invoices, there were still some human steps involved. You would probably get mailed a paper invoice. There would be a clerical type of person who would then take that paper invoice, put it into a scanner, get a PDF, and then send the PDF via email to the accounts payable person, who would then have to import data manually into an accounting system. They would review that, they would approve it, and then they would print out a check on a paper printer. That paper check, along with the original invoice, would then get sent to another clerical type of person who would put it into an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it, right? So lots of human steps, lots of manual steps. Whereas with the advent of the cloud and these types of higher level services that do OCR, this entire invoice processing workflow can be automated such that the invoice could come in via email as a PDF. We could extract the PDF out of the email automatically and then scan that PDF using Amazon Textract, which is a very advanced OCR system, and then immediately figure out who the vendor is and what the billed amount is. That then automatically gets imported into the accounts payable system. Here I'm showing HiIQ.ai, which is one of our partners. That goes into the invoice accounts payable system, and the accounts payable system can have a set of rules that says, well, if the invoice is, let's say, under a certain amount, like under a few $100s, and that this is a vendor that we recognize and it's a monthly invoice, well, there's no need to even go through a human approval process. We're just going to electronically send an ACH payment right to the vendor's bank. So there's not even a paper check to print out, right? This is an example of a completely automated invoice processing flow where there's no human involvement whatsoever.
And the finance team and the accounting teams, the teams are still thriving within the organization. So and I think relating to the creative side of collapsing many to few steps, the accounting team members and the finance team members who are operating in this type of, I would say, more advanced processing way, their roles have adopted. They haven't been alleviated. They're not that they are displaced within the organization. They're actually allowed to, whether you're on the creative side, and I think the invoice example here resonates so well, which is they're focused on higher value tasks for the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in finance, what you want to do is focus on profit and loss statements and more strategic ways, right, to manage the company's financial expenses. And you don't really want to, spend a lot of your time with these rote, menial type of tasks.
And I think the Rana, applies on the creative side, which is if
Yes.
I, as a creative content producer or the executive sponsor of the campaigns, or am I the CMO of the organization, whether you're in finance and accounting or you're in creative or sales or marketing, there is often, hey, is there an ROI to the investment that we're discussing here today? And I think we can pretty clearly talk about through some of the examples of Global Edit and also the success stories of Amazon Web Services. ROI is meant to be transparent with the investment in workflow automation and cloud technology.
Absolutely. And I think in the creative operations world, you can directly measure ROI by leveraging the cloud and machine learning. You can directly measure it in terms of time saved in hours.
Yep.
And we have several customers who can testify to the amount of time that they've saved.
So before we unpack some of the customers and the success stories, I think part of what systems like Global Edit that operate in the cloud offer, and by leveraging Amazon Web Services that are highly scalable, whether it be from a storage perspective, which is essentially infinite, or to the ability to upload tens of thousands of images all at once, the benefit to the user, to the creative and marketing teams who are really core to the content that's produced within the organization or at an agency or as an original content or theatrical content creator, is you're consolidating the systems. We saw it in the invoice example. You consolidated down. Writing a check and licking an envelope is a system, or having email and having 5 or 6 systems to transact assets. Those are the same systems that we want you to be able to not just consolidate, but streamline the time of moving between those steps that each of the systems manipulates. And that's a lot of the success that we see with Global Edit. Is it refines not just the systems that you use, but the automation between those workflow steps that are essential to produce great content. So Rana, you've seen this happen in some really amazing scale by clients who have invested in Amazon Web Services and the technologies that exist. So I'd love for you to help us understand, there's kind of a variety of different success stories based upon different, we'll say, asset types that folks have invested to produce their Amazon Web Services. So help us understand, is it just if I produce a photo or a video can I benefit, or is it all asset types that can benefit from this workflow automation and cloud acceleration effort that we're speaking to?
It really is all different asset types and many different types of workflows that can be automated. So we have an example where one of our customers is C-SPAN, who, as you know, trains their cameras on government events every single day. And through the course of the years, they have collected and stored thousands of hours of videos, right, covering events in Congress and government. So this is a quote that's taken directly from a tech manager at C-SPAN. He said that by using Amazon Recognition, which is our image recognition service, we are able to tag who is speaking on camera at what time, down to the second, if needed. And what the tech manager at C-SPAN said is that Recognition allows us to index twice as much content as we do currently, from 3,500 hours a year to 7,500 hours a year. So for the first time, C-SPAN has been able to index 100% of their first run content, thanks to AWS Recognition and the cloud platform. He's also said that it was shockingly easy to set this all up. I mean, they've got 97,000 video entities in their database, and it was easy to set this up so that they could index all the content. So that's a testimonial from C-SPAN. CBS is another one of our customers. They're using Recognition to moderate content in images and videos. So they're basically removing offensive content like nudity and so on from their videos. And these are capabilities that used to be completely manual before, but now, because Recognition can recognize content that's not safe for work or content that's offensive, that Recognition can just go ahead and remove that content for them. Praymaker, this is an interesting story because this is the first visual effects studio that was built entirely in the cloud. For those of you who know, produce visual effects, let's say for those cool effects that are in movies like Fast and Furious and that are in commercials these days, most of those visual effects workstations are very high end. And so they stay on premises because of all the tricked up hardware that you need, right? Well, so Praymaker then, instead of using on-prem workstations, we're able to build those very high-end workstations in the cloud. They were able to use the cloud then to do their visual effects content creation. So these are all great stories of customers in the media space taking advantage of AWS and the cloud.
And there were, as you were talking through those stories, there was three things that I just wrote down that I think are really important. Is the comprehensiveness that these organizations can run at, whether it's the ability to index and tag 100% of their content, or to scale the throughput of that content. A lot of this has to do with being comprehensive to all of the content that a brand has access to. And it might be for the longevity of the brand, it could be for the lifetime of that campaign that you're running, but the comprehensiveness of having all of the information as a creative content producer or someone who accesses the content, be it that you're the consumer or you're the marketer, you actually have really empowered that comprehensiveness to all of the assets. And I think the nice part about this is we're talking about a variety of assets. It may have been the time and place when your e-commerce website was solely focused on having great product imagery to sell your content. But what's accompanied alongside your product imagery now? You're producing video, you may have a VR experience. So you have a variety of different content formats that at scale can be challenging to solve without the right technology in place. So I think as we kind of move on to the modernization that certain references have already experienced, is there's a major impact once the asset is already produced, but there's a huge part up front, which in the global edit side, we're really focused on, which is when that image or that video is initially captured, or you're actually planning to capture it, you're getting ready to launch a campaign, and you want to go out and you want to request that photographer to upload their content, or you want to provide a batch of images to be retouched really quickly. The combined horsepower of Amazon Web Services and Global Edit together is actually about, as a content producer, being comprehensive to all of the assets that you're producing for that campaign in one place, that those assets and are at the right step in their process. It's so interesting as I have the opportunity to talk with hundreds of prospective and existing clients about how they're solving the challenges of scale. A lot of it has to do with, we have a very rigid, structured process that our creative content needs to go through. We just want to go through that process easier. So part of what our thought process to that is, let's define your workflows. Let's automate and create workflow automation recipes, as we refer to them here at Global Edit, to allow you to really push that asset and push the team members through the process as efficiently as possible. The complementary part of that, Rana, and I think this is where I'm interested to hear from you, is the complements to that is having that intelligent asset and having that variety of assets that may or may not be alike to what I'm already producing at my fingertips. So recognition and personalization are two huge areas that Amazon has poked into helping to solve those scale challenges. How are you seeing it be enacted within specific organizations that you're working with?
Sure. So yeah, as you said, customers come to a company such as yours, Global Edit, to automate their workflows, and then you then come and leverage the services on our back end to do exactly that. But just as you said, Brian, we see this applied in other divisions of the company, such as we see it for marketing, where we help customers hone their marketing strategy and automate the way they send their emails and track their campaigns, the success of their campaigns. We also see it in personalization, where customers are driving better engagement with their users on their websites because they're personalizing that website to previous patterns of engagement by the end user. So these are where it's not just creative, it's other departments that are now taking advantage of all of these different services that we offer.
And it gets back to what you were sharing through the success stories, which is the ability to be comprehensive in the data that you manage all together, that's accessible by a variety of different systems, because now you have a set of images that aren't just accessible to the one server in your office that has access to do or video transcoding or image resizing. These set of assets that we're so hard at work producing as a creative, it's now in a variety of ways accessible to a lot of other teams that we know we can't provide content for fast enough. And that gets to kind of look at when you look at how your images are actually touching, or your data is touching a variety of other systems. I think this is a good way, as we've talked a lot about this at Global Edit, and we really study how our prospective and existing customers want to see the assets evolve. Images come from a variety of places and they go to a variety of places. Project management systems, email service providers, the product information management system that has all that rich data about that product photography that I'm producing, or the website that relies on the content that us as creators produce to support the business growth that our e-commerce websites fuel. No longer are they these isolated silos of product. They really need access, back to that word that you used so perfectly, Rana. They need to be comprehensive, and that ability to be comprehensive as a creative content producer means that an image that's stored within Global Edit is also provided to your DAM to start to manage asset rights and versions, or to your website to speed up that go to market, or your product information management system is actually helping fuel your marketing team because your content is more searchable. So that word comprehensive just keeps coming back to me so time and time again. And I think it speaks to that world that we're at from a technology perspective, which is, as a content producer or the president of Global Edit, I expect the systems that I use to manage my business to be connected. So Rana, I guess before we go on to talk a little bit about some of the services and the applicability of that, is what does it mean to be connected from an ecosystem perspective at AWS? How do you help brands realize that they truly can be in a connected ecosystem of a variety of different solutions, which, if you can kind of go with me here for a second, these almost represent different unique teams within the organization in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, absolutely. Central to this is your content. So once your content lands on AWS, then there's an entire universe of services that offer you a variety of services. It could be something like you have a PDF and you need it translated from English to Spanish, or you've just scraped some content from Twitter, and now you want to see what the response was to the product that you just launched. You want to gauge what that sentiment is. All right, are people happy? Are they sad? You want, once you have content, now you want to use that content, let's say in a marketing campaign, right? Or for example, you want to integrate some things that you've just created with your finance system and calculate ROI. All of these things now, because AWS has such an integrated set of services that all work so well with each other, all of these different high-value automated workflows become possible, whether you want to offer a video on demand service, or whether you want to moderate and remove offensive content, image labeling, video labeling, personalization, campaign. All of these things now revolve around the content that you've just put into AWS, and then these workflows can be triggered from the content that you put in, because all these services on AWS work so well with each other.
And you said that twice now on talking about what it means when content is all, we'll say, managed within the same place, which is managed within the cloud. It works well together. No longer do you have one format of an image not be able to be uploaded to one system because there's these blocks in software fit. The assets work well together because they all live within the same place, which in the global edit world and in the AWS world, it's in the cloud and it's easily transferable. So Rana, let's talk about, we've been talking a lot about some of the really high value technology that Amazon brings to image and video management. And one of them is Amazon Recognition. And it's amazing the variety of use cases that it can be used for. And I think you can help us understand, as a content producer, where are some of the low-hanging fruit that this really scalable technology can be applied within my organization?
Sure. So let's take an example of tagging images. Amazon Recognition, if you look at the picture of the bicyclist, it can automatically draw bounding boxes around each object it recognizes, like the bicycle, the rock, and things like that. And then it'll give you a confidence score. Basically, it's saying that I recognize with 95% accuracy that this is a bicycle or this is a helmet. And so it's going to then label that image and give you all the confidence scores and bounding boxes. That's just one capability. Now, over on the right of that picture where you see all the dogs in that picture, if out of the box you show Recognition a picture of a dog, it's going to just label it as a dog. Whereas if you are more of a dog breeder and it's much more important for you or let's say you're hosting a dog show, for example, then, and it's much more important for you to recognize the breed of dog. Is this a terrier or a collie or an Alsatian? Then what you can do is you can upload to Recognition custom custom images of the breeds, or custom images of what you want to classify. Train Recognition on your particular phrases and labels of images, and then show Recognition new ones, and Recognition will say, yep, Recognition will say that, okay, instead of saying that it's a dog, it actually will say, okay, this is a collie, for example. All right. Content moderation, we've already talked about that. It'll automatically remove and flag offensive or not safe for work content. It can recognize text, like the runners on that in that video have a number. It'll actually figure out what that numeric value is. It has a database of celebrities. So any person who's in the actor and actress database in IMDb, it'll know who they are and tell you who they are. And the other thing is that pathing, where it can follow a sporting event and track a particular athlete. So these are really all and of course it can work on live streaming video too. So it can recognize objects as video is live streamed, and we're very excited about that particular feature.
And it's amazing because if you look back 5 years ago, I don't think we were as excited or as optimistic that this was a almost immediate reality that we could implement into a highly scalable solution. And with the right brains at the table, the effort to stand up something like this is so different than it was even just a year or two ago, not even 5 years ago. And I see this impacting some of the roles in creative because a lot of the folks that we work with up front are focused on the role of a digital asset manager or a taxonomist, or the roles that have the upfront detail about what is in that image. And we talked about that kind of change of the accounting team and the finance team as sending out invoices changed. That role of some folks within the creative organization, as they're able to leverage technology, becomes less about individual asset tagging and more about producing the right curations of content and helping our audience as a digital asset manager of our systems to share with the creative teams and the marketing teams the infinite content that we can now, because we have that comprehensive ability to manage years of content at once. The applicability is not just when it's in the wild or it's already produced, but it's actually, hey, I can now maintain a comprehensive library of my content for the years that my brand has produced as a way of inspiration. So I think the the labeling, and as we know on the creative side, it might be applying metadata or tags. I think we're seeing this technology of recognition be that disruptor back to the invoice process, which in the creative world is the role of the digital asset manager, and some of the key roles in creative, which apply tags as part of the production process, are changing and evolving. And we see the ability of the technology also evolving and is getting quite sophisticated, and seeing what it's capable of doing, Rana.
Absolutely. So yeah, as a creative person, you can now focus on your customer and what the customer needs and put together a story for them, as opposed to what fiddling around with what the technology actually does for you, right? If you can drag and drop an image onto a web page, you can use recognition. You don't need to be a machine learning scientist to be able to use recognition. You just upload an image and recognition gets to work labeling things for you. Here's an example where an image with a skateboarder is labeled by recognition, for example.
And probably something that we deal with very often is it's multiple variables within the image, and having that confidence and that ability to not just tell me what's in the image, but maybe attributes about the image themselves, which I think as a creative, we often don't get time to think about. It's more just what's the product that's in this image, less about the context. And Amazon is actually helping to provide the contextual part of the creative as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it can actually, rather than with specific objects, it can basically classify the image and tell you that this is about sports in general, right? Or the other things in the image are about architecture in general, as opposed to specific objects in this image. So it can generate specific themes.
That's really awesome. And the other part is helping us know to a confidence level, how confident are we about what's in the image, right?
Yep, and here's where you've got percentage scores, as I mentioned, that basically score how well recognition thinks it matched an object to a label.
I want to get to one example that I think really resonated so well with me, which is, as a brand, influencers are probably the most popular marketing investment that we may make if we're a fast growing fashion brand, cosmetics company, or even in the depths of producing media content. It's not just about identifying the images that you've produced, but it's probably images that are in the wild as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's an example where you can extract text out of an image. And notice in this picture, the word restaurante is not horizontally written out. It's in this stylized semicircular shape, which traditionally has been difficult for computers to recognize words when they're in stylized shapes like that. But recognition can absolutely pick that out and extract all the words out of all these different images.
And for those of us who work with influencers, the ability to let the technology do the work for you means that you actually can track down all of the content in the wild. You can rely on the technology to help manage the influencers that our brands are growing so reliant on. Another example, Rana, here is kind of on the expressions, but also the products that are present, and how you're actually combining both of them.
Absolutely. So right now, of course, influencers love to post on Instagram and label certain things with the brand name. So you as a brand want to follow these influencers and you want to know when they're mentioning your brand. So with recognition, you get a whole lot more content identification than just what the influencer put in. So you can get the whole context around what the influencer was talking about, and therefore, brands, of course, are paying influencers because they have so many followers. Like on Instagram, they may have tens of thousands of followers. So for brands to know when they're being mentioned on social media, like in Instagram, and then to apply recognition and get the whole context around them and get more objects out of the scene, that's a big value add to brands.
And it doesn't just apply to photo. You guys are, from a technology standpoint, able to apply this to the video side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an example where if you're a sports broadcaster, you can actually focus on a particular player and track the movement on that particular player. So let's say that person two is the person of interest. You can track his movement all the way to his attempt on goal and then draw a line in the background showing his exact movement. This is really entertaining for people who are watching sports events. And it's also helpful for coaching athletes.
The, coming outside of the relevancy to the creative, it's actually, hey, it can be a coaching tool. So if some of us are
Yeah,
coaching outside of work, maybe we should get recognition up and running on our sports teams. But seriously impactful for the massive media companies that are broadcasting this, but also trying to dynamically personalize what's happening right on scene to the experiences that the audience observes. So this is, Ron, I think a good segue for us to talk a little bit about video specifically.
mhm.
Video is the fastest growing asset class that we see within Global Edit. We know as a content producer, the audience expects a rich experience, which is supported by a variety of assets, and video is allowing us to showcase our brand and our products and our marketing material or content in a new way. And Amazon is helping us scale really well at Global Edit. We've invested our video platform heavily through Amazon Elemental, which is a really scalable platform that if you had asked 5 years ago that we're going to advance the technology of video within Global Edit, we'd be looking at massive infrastructure investment compared to the ability to quickly implement elemental infrastructure services into Global Edit to bring the capability of video to our end user in a very fast time frame. So Rana, video is growing. I'm sure you talk to a lot of clients who are growing their video needs. How is Amazon solving some of those challenges at a really scalable way?
Yeah, absolutely. So because we can translate the speech in a video to text, we can automatically add captions to a video. That's one. So automated captioning is a big demand within the AWS ecosystem. And then once the video is captioned, the video producer may want to distribute the video to other countries where they speak Spanish or French or German, and we then have we have automated machine learning based translation services, which can take English captions and translate them into, for example, Spanish. So now you have a video that's now captioned in Spanish, right? You had one in English, now it's in Spanish. All of
Mm-hmm.
this automated. And you and Global Edit are leveraging Elemental Media Services to help your customers with video on demand. If you have a library of videos and you want users to consume those videos in an easy manner and reformat those videos so that they can be consumed on any device, it could be an iPad or an Android phone, any of these devices then can be used to consume the video that you're offering on demand. This is all enabled by our AWS Elemental Media Services.
And it gets back, Rana, to me. It keep like the buzzword you said, and it will live with me forever today, is comprehensiveness. As a content producer, we're constantly taxed with yet another system, and for us at Global Edit, with the creative workflow solution that we're providing to our customers and every day talking to prospective customers about video as another asset class within Global Edit means as a content producer, you have a more comprehensive solution and it's scalable. It's so often are we probably still pegged by the days of, well, how many gigabytes or terabytes of content can I put in the system? And our answer to our prospective and existing customers is put in as much content as you need to support your brand and your audience. So I think it's really important and amazing that the scale in which we're innovating and the comprehensiveness that the technology allows us as a software provider to this audience here that's listening, but also to the technologist who wants to leverage recognition within their own infrastructure technology portfolio. Both are such an easy reality. So let's transition a little bit to, we've produced amazing content. We have had amazing ability to keep the comprehensiveness of our content deliverable to our audience at the realm that they expect. Now you have to serve it up, and you're fighting for attention. So there's that ability to, how do you speak to that audience, that buyer of your product?
Yeah, so this gets me to a service that I'm personally very excited about, which is Amazon Personalize. As you know, Brian, about 20 years ago, Amazon.com pioneered the notion of recommendation. And basically, when you went to Amazon.com and you bought a book, you got a recommendation that says that customers who bought this type of fiction or this title also bought this other title, right? Which then drove demand for other books in the same genre. Well, that type of personalization technology, that cost Amazon.com multiple millions of dollars to produce, right? But now, thanks to how cheap machine learning and AI is, we're happy to give all our customers exactly the same recommendation engine that we used back then and that we've refined over the years, right? We have now made this personalization technology available to the masses. So no matter how small or how big a company you are, you can now use Amazon Personalize to personalize the content on your website based on how users have engaged with that content in the past. And you can have a recommendation, and you can basically leverage the recommendation engine to say that, customers who engaged with this type of content, also you may also enjoy this other content, or you may also want to purchase this other product. This is the technology now that is now being brought to every company of every size using Amazon Personalize.
And I think it stems from two things, which to me, working with creatives every day, it is all about, which is the accessibility of great content, which we've talked a lot about how to provide that accessibility. But I think the one thing that stands out here, and I can't stop looking at it, is it's the metadata. And so much of the creative process, it starts in the early stages of planning. It actually impacts so much of the ability that we have control of, which is deliver an amazing buyer experience. And you may be a buyer of watching a film on Netflix or Amazon Video, or you may be a buyer on an e-commerce website for a new polo shirt. But it stems from that ability to have metadata, which is something that is through and through culture of global edit, and something that we indoctrinate any client or talk to prospective clients about, which is have a strong metadata portfolio so that you can leverage technology like this. So I think, Rana, we've unpacked so much about various technologies, opportunities for scale, but the benefits, they come back to 4 core principles. And timeline is one. We know that as a creative content producer or someone who's responsible for marketing that content, the timelines are only getting shorter. The campaign cycles are only growing in scale. How do you help clients measure the impact of automation, Rana?
Yeah, so we absolutely are able to help them calculate their ROI, because what happens is that just like the example that I said with C-SPAN, they see measurable impact in terms of how quickly they can catalog all their content, how quickly they can classify it. And then in terms of the personalization, they're actually seeing revenue gains after they personalize their website, because users are more engaged and they can see that in increased revenue. They can also reduce freelance hours, because now things that used to be more manual are now being done automatically by machine in the cloud. And of course, lightening the tech stack. So these are all things that have quantifiable ROI.
And to the greater business, which I think for those that might have holistic accountability, the impact of something like, hey, do you add metadata to your images or video, impact the ability to personalize through Amazon Web Services, which means, do you have a holistic impact on the business, which is, are we selling more product or renting more movies or purchasing more movies or selling more ad campaigns? So that power of automation and the power of personalization have holistic business impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ron, I know we're getting towards just the back couple minutes of this presentation today, and we're going to meet again on the third part of our webinar series to talk about how you bring together the technology component of an organization's step towards the cloud, but also in our second webinar series, we're going to talk a little bit about how is an organization gonna get the people and the process orchestrated around the technology. Before we do that, I just want to kind of talk about a few specific examples where you saw really big impact. And one of them, true to Global Edit, is the ability to scale metadata, the ability to have a really scalable infrastructure through Amazon Web Services means that that backbone of some of the key things you've talked about, which is enriching through recognition or personalizing through the usage of metadata, is crucial. But there really are some other big benefits on the personalization side, and I want the opportunity for us just to go through two examples before we start to just transition to a bunch of the questions that have come in today. So talk to us a little bit about how Stock leveraged that holistic experience to create a really personalized end user experience.
Sure. Here's an example of a retail catalog that's on the web. And this customer applied personalization service on AWS to their retail catalog. And the end result of that, their users were shown products that were more relevant to that user. And as a result, they were able to gain 15% additional revenue as a result of the personalization. Plus, there was 50% increase in customer engagement on the recommended for you product. So they're able to measure the engagement on the page, and the engagement bumped up by 50% once they added Amazon personalization to their website.
That's amazing. The other big win and I think this is really important because content is king for us that are tuning into a TV or a tablet, is on the media and entertainment side of content production.
Yeah, so here's a customer who's engaged with sports content, and they're able to increase their video consumption by 20% by using personalization. Why? Because just like when Netflix tells you that people who watch this video watch these other videos, and they tell you about content that you're more likely to watch, a recommendation engine for videos, that's exactly what Personalized gave this company, and that's how they drove engagement on it.
It's really powerful because as someone who sits on the front lines of creating this content, there's still so much work that goes into crafting and tuning that creative after it's been perfected for the audience's eyes. And some of the tools that go into that, I sometimes forget that the upfront work that we do in the creative process influences it so much. So that ability to have a really efficient creative workflow stems so far downstream all the way to the end user, to that buyer in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rana, you've spent a great deal of time sharing a great wealth of knowledge about how Amazon is an amazing partner of Global Edit for scaling our own software that is in the hands of thousands of creatives every day, but also as its own standalone technology. So I guess, Rana, where does creative workflow go from here? Where do you think are the next 1 or 2 years of creative workflow automation in the lens of AWS and Global Edit?
Well, we're excited about technologies such as real-time video translation of captioning and things like that, much more real-time tracking of what's going on social media, sentiment analysis being done more in real time as Twitter expands what your reach is, and so on and so forth. I think these are things that we're looking to and which are going to happen in future.
Amazing. So this concludes the presentation part of our discussion today from Rana and myself. And Rana, I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank the audience who have listened in today and may download this and listen to it on their phone tomorrow. Thank you to everyone who's really participated in hearing the status of creative workflow automation, but also the future of creative workflow automation. So we did get some questions, Rana, along the time that we've been discussing today's webinar that I wanted to just bounce a couple off you. And I think it'll be interesting here to get your perspective, which is the first one. All of this technology, Rana, sounds amazing. And the question directly is, how do you get started in implementing automation into a workflow?
I would say if you want your workflow to be automated, reach out to your reach out to your global edit representative, reach out to the experts, or reach out to your account team on AWS to leverage these types of services. So yeah, contact subject matter experts at AWS and at Global Edit and to take the next step forward.
And I shouldn't probably be intimidated by what it means to say, hey, I want to tag my images automatically. It seems like we now have that technology to do that. So yeah, absolutely. I think that hits the nail on the head, is taking that bold step to say, hey, I want to solve a problem that has greater business impact than just myself as the retoucher or the creative director. Next one, Rana, that came in is there a reason to implement automation if you're a freelancer?
I think so. The cost is so cheap now. Why would you, as a freelancer even, why would you not want to have workflows that automated generating thumbnails, for example? You don't want to do that manually. And things are cheap enough now that you can easily afford to use the thumbnail generation and some of these recognition capabilities as well. Recognition costs, really pennies in terms of the ability to recognize objects.
And as a very close partner to your, Rana, I would say solutions like Global Edit that have implemented workflow automation and some of the scale that often the early promoter or adopter of it is the enterprise, because they're the well-funded part of our community in the creative sense. Is Global Edit has adopted these scalable solutions for all creative users, not just that large enterprise. Rana, we're just at the hour, so I'm going to put one more question on here. We have a few more that if your question today didn't get answered, we'll make sure that we follow up and answer them directly with you. Thank you. There's been so many good questions that have come in. And this one, Rana, I think I already know the answer to, but I guess I'm curious is, do I need a team of developers to get started with this automation? Or how complex is this going to be to get going?
Not for using services, out-of-the-box services like recognition or personalize. I mean, a lot of these things are mainly configuration as opposed to writing a whole bunch of code. So you do not need a team of developers. You'll need people who understand the service pretty well and who are able to stitch together services together. If though you need a special, highly customized workflow, by all means, reach out to us and we'll help you.
Awesome. So Ron, I know that we're at the hour. There is a few more questions that came in, but just in the sensitivity of folks' time that are on the line today, I want to be respectful to that hour. Again, we're going to be sharing a recording of this webinar with everyone who's registered. If your question today did not get answered, we'll be reaching out to you directly to answer those. And a major, huge thank you to everyone who spent time on the line with us today. Hopefully, if you're walking away with one takeaway, it's that the creative workflow automation is here. It's now. We should take advantage of it. And if you have any questions, Rana and I are most certainly happy to help you. And certainly last but not least is, Rana, thank you very much for your wealth of knowledge in today's conversation. We really look forward to picking back up with you in our third webinar in September.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, Brian.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye now.